2 weeks later, in the West Texas desert, James arrived on the giant set in Marfa. The intense heat stung his face, a welcome distraction. Working alongside Elizabeth Taylor, Dennis Hopper, and Paul Newman grounded him. They nodded, sensing a new steeliness in his gaze. During a midday break, James slipped away to the parking lot and climbed into the sleek Porsche 550 Spider he'd kept hidden. The engine's purr felt like a promise of escape. He remembered the redwood cabin's silence and thought of the loose ends back home. He needed one last drive to clear his head. As the sun dipped low, he merged onto the two-lane highway. The desert stretched in brutal beauty, flat, endless, and unforgiving. He pushed the Spider, letting the engine sing. For a moment peace slipped in, then headlights blazed toward him in his lane, an outlaw enthusiast eager to race at dawn's end. Time slowed. James swerved, tires biting into gravel. The road gave way under his hands. He fought to correct the spin, but the Spider slid off the shoulder and struck a rocky embankment. Metal crunched, sparks flew. James's last thought was of that green helmet in Glendale, of Roy's steady presence, of Eva's unwavering loyalty. Later that night, radio waves crackled with news. James Dean dies in Porsche crash. No mention of underground races, just the tragic end of a young star. The world mourned. Some whispered he engineered his own fate. Others lamented a talent lost too soon. But Eva and Roy knew the truth. James's final days had been shaped by a hidden race, a desperate gamble, and a tape that exposed a man who nearly lost his life. They kept that secret close, shielding it from rumors that only sought to romanticize his death. In the years that followed, James Dean became immortal, not just for Rebel Without a Cause or East of Eden, but for the secret he nearly died to keep, the hidden midnight race that tested his courage, revealed his vulnerability, and ultimately contributed to the legend. Each autumn, Roy would sit at his Glendale desk beside a green banker's lamp, resting a hand on the empty helmet. He'd close his eyes and listen for a heartbeat that wasn't there. And Eva, in her Los Angeles apartment, would replay that reel-to-reel tape just once each year, so she would never forget James Dean, the man who raced against death, lived to expose betrayal, and paid the price for his truth in the end. 2 months later, redwood forests lined Highway 1. James, wearing a gray sweater and jeans, drove his Mercury coupe north. The Pacific wind whipped his hair as he reached a small cabin perched at the edge of thick woods. Fog crept between towering trunks. Roy arrived for the weekend with fishing gear and canned supplies. They spent days casting lines into silent rivers and nights huddled around a wood stove. But James couldn't shake the race's memory. The metal shard, the roar of engines, Knuckles' fury. One late November evening, Eva arrived unannounced, suitcase in hand and newspapers under her arm. "You okay?" she asked, wrapping her arms around him. James hugged her fiercely, trying. She handed him a stack of broadsheets, Knuckles indicted, underground race ring dismantled, and James Dean survives to tell the tale. Photos showed Knuckles in handcuffs, glare frozen in horror, James's chest unclenched as relief flooded him. The truth had prevailed, at least for now. "Still, they're speculating about your disappearance," she said softly, unfolding another sheet, an entertainment column claiming James had gone missing, possibly hiding from the scandal. He folded it carefully. "I never asked for attention, I just wanted to live." Eva placed a hand on his arm. "But the world will want your story. They won't let it go." James nodded. "Then I'll tell it on my terms. First I finish Giant, then I vanish again, if I must." They slipped into a cramped editing booth. Outside, the set buzzed with activity, extras moving props, crew adjusting lights. Inside, Eva threaded the tape onto a battered machine. James hovered, eyes closed. Cassettes clicked, reels spun, voices filled the small room, his own breathless racing commentary, Roy's frantic warnings, the roar of engines. "This is it," Eva whispered, "enough to indict Lance Madigan." James nodded. "Let's send it to the Gazette, and maybe 2 major papers." Eva clicked off the lights. They left the booth into a dawn that felt both hopeful and terrifying. A week later, headlines screamed, "James Dean's secret midnight race, proof of attempted sabotage." The Los Angeles Gazette featured a grainy photo, Dean in his racing suit, helmet in hand, beside the auto union. Below, an image of Knuckles grimacing in handcuffs. The article detailed outrage, calls for a full investigation, and gratitude from James for staying alive. Knuckles struck back furiously. By mid-afternoon, the Gazette's offices received menacing phone calls. Windows shattered, notes smeared in red ink read, "Stop the lies, kid, or you'll pay." Eva pressed the note to her heart, trembling. James read the Gazette cover in disbelief from his rented bungalow near the studio. His pulse thudded. Roy stood in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee. "They'll come after us," James said quietly. "I don't want anyone else hurt." Roy placed a hand on his shoulder. "They'll try, but you can't let them scare you. You did the right thing." James bowed his head. "I just want peace." Roy nodded. "Then let's get you out for a while. I know a cabin up north where no one'll bother you." James hesitated, but saw the truth in Roy's eyes. By sunset the next day, he booked a one-way ticket to San Francisco under his birth name, James Byron Dean, vanishing before police or Knuckles' men could find him. He called Eva. "Don't publish another word until I say so." She agreed, knowing Knuckles would lash out if cornered. Eva's pulse matched James's as she slipped away into the night, tape recorder clutched to her chest. By dawn on the giant set, James arrived bleary-eyed, clutching a cryptic note under his trailer door. "I have what you need. Meet me by craft services, 6 a.m. He recognized Eva's careful handwriting. He swallowed. Roy had warned him not to trust anyone, but Eva had been a genuine friend. He finished makeup and wardrobe, then slipped to meet her at sunrise. Eva stood by the coffee cart, reel-to-reel in hand. Her dark hair was messy, eyes bright with determination. "I have the race on tape," she said, offering him the reel. "Every engine roar, every shout, even your voice." James took it, heart pounding. "You risked a lot." She shook her head. "This is bigger than celebrity gossip. Knuckles rigged your car to kill you. I won't run it without your say-so." He crumpled the tape in his fist. The thought of Knuckles' henchmen tracking Eva made his blood run cold. "Knuckles won't stop. If he finds out," Eva's voice hardened, "then we publish, we name names." He exhaled. "Okay, but we have to be careful." "Fuel's cutting out," James replied, voice tight. "Someone's tampered." Knuckles' black roadster loomed on the right, its headlights glaring like fangs. The driver waved, a mocking flourish. James tightened his grip and steered left to block the Chevy's path. Metal rasped against metal as the roadster clipped his left door. The auto union wobbled, sparks sprayed. James's pulse hammered. He couldn't stop now. With a final shift, he unleashed a burst of speed. In the last 50 yards, the finish line appeared like a flicker of hope. He leaned forward, lungs burning. The engine threatened to stall again, but he shoved the throttle. Tires gripped the cracked asphalt. James crossed the painted tape just ahead of the roadster that nearly clipped him. Silence enveloped him as he cut the ignition. The engine died. In his chest, his heartbeat roared louder than any engine. He wrenched off his helmet. Hands trembling, he unzipped his suit. Roy pounded on the hood. "You okay?" Roy asked, rushing over. "Adrenaline," James said, forcing a grin. Under the hood, he tapped the carburetor. A small metal shard clinked against his knuckle. He yanked it free, barely enough to block fuel flow. Roy spotted Knuckles at the edge of the torchlight, fists clenched, rage twisting his face. Lance realized his scheme had failed. Behind stacked crates, Eva Morales, an entertainment reporter James trusted, pressed record on her reel-to-reel tape. She'd come for an interview and found a scoop far bigger. James Dean, risking his life in a race rigged to kill him. She captured every engine rev, every ragged breath, every word. Roy patted his shoulder. "Remember, protect your lead, watch for Knuckles." James's heartbeat rattled in his ears at the mention of Lance Knuckles Madigan, a ruthless underground organizer who'd placed a gargantuan bet on Dean's car to blow up mid-race. Rumor held that Knuckles paid someone to rig the engine, tamper with brakes, or drop metal shavings into the fuel line. James clenched his fists as he slid into the silver Auto Union 5000 he'd refurbished. Under the torchlight, the car's racing stripes gleamed like a promise. The flagman, a lanky kid with oil-stained gloves, raised a ragged cloth. Engines revved to life. James gripped the wheel, tuned into every vibration through his gloves. Roy's calm face appeared in the rearview mirror. 3, 2, 1, go! The flag dropped. Instantly, tire screeches split the night as cars leapt forward. James slammed the accelerator. The Auto Union lurched, then screamed to life. He shifted into second as the cars rocketed down the narrow asphalt. Ahead loomed broken crates, oil slicks, and a merciless narrow strip that allowed no room for error. James focused purely on the road. He downshifted into third when a Dodge Coupe drifted alongside him. Its driver winked. James kept his lane, refusing to be goaded. He only needed to survive. Halfway through, his engine sputtered. The Auto Union jerked. James felt panic twinge his chest. A glance at the tachometer showed the red line spiking and dropping erratically. Knuckles' sabotage was real. He fought to keep control, downshifting to maintain power. Roy's voice crackled in his earpiece. "You okay, Jimmy?" Roy grinned. "Wouldn't miss it. Clutch linkages fixed. Should be safer." He winced. Neither believed a word. They slipped out to Roy's battered blue 53 Mercury coupe. The engine purred as they drove north on the freeway, city lights blurring past. James stared ahead, imagining the race corridor, a narrow stretch of cracked asphalt and rusted chain-link fences. He felt his pulse quicken. "Ever think about what happens if something goes wrong?" James asked, glancing at Roy. "Yeah," Roy said, "but you need it more than Hollywood ever will." James nodded. "Just, let's make it count." 15 minutes later, the Mercury coasted onto the industrial strip. Warehouses loomed, windows boarded and silent. A dozen cars gathered under flickering tiki torches, souped-up Fords, a sleek Dodge coupe, and one black roadster that seemed to swallow light. Drivers lounged against their hoods, swapping cigarettes and bets. The stench of gasoline hung heavy in the chill air. Roy parked by a spray-painted starting line, two torches flickering half a block away, marking the finish. James climbed out and donned his helmet. He adjusted his black driving suit, its white piping matching the stripes on his helmet. Most racers recognized him, a Hollywood rising star with a taste for danger. Whispers circulated. "Is that really James Dean in an Auto Union 5?" It was a crisp autumn night in Glendale, California. James Dean perched on the edge of his bed, holding a worn leather helmet. The roar of his own heartbeat echoed in his mind, matching the restless thoughts that had haunted his nights ever since filming Giant had begun. Outside, a low mist settled over the quiet neighborhood, and a wandering breeze rattled dry leaves against the window. He traced the faded racing stripes on the white and red helmet, remembering the thrill of speed, the clean rush of wind, the pounding of his pulse, the split-second focus that made him feel truly alive. Despite his Hollywood success, it was underground street racing that fueled him. Tonight, he'd meet Roy "Tiny" O'Connell, his oldest friend and confidant, to compete in a clandestine race on Glendale's abandoned industrial strip. It was dangerous, yes, but necessary to escape his own restlessness. A knock sounded at the front door. James opened it to find Roy in a plaid shirt and jeans, duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Roy's once rounded cheeks had slimmed with age, and freckles dotted the bridge of his nose. "Got everything?" Roy asked, voice low. James produced a folded map. Glendale's industrial strip. Abandoned warehouses. Slick pavement. No lights. He folded the map and tucked it into his jacket pocket. "You sure you want to do this?"